We're back again talking about giving. Money, always a happy topic, sensitive as always, but it's interesting stuff, and we hope for the first video on giving was helpful. Today, Jason, we're going to be talking about giving, but then something that you mentioned last video, which I think is important. You were talking about how if you sow, you'll reap.
Right.
That there's this principle in the scripture that if you give, you'll receive. That idea is there.
Yeah.
The dangerous thing there in my heart would be, well, if I give $1, I'll get $2.
Right.
So then,
of course.
oh wow, then I can sort of barter with God for the sake of money. Obviously not a biblical principle, but how would you sort of break that down?
Yeah. 2 Corinthians 9 talks about that, right? He who sows sparingly. This is 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6. Okay. He who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Then talks about giving cheerfully, right? Not under compulsion. Yeah. And then it ends really that area of how God will supply everything that you need so that you can then supply the saints with what they need.
Yeah.
And if you read verse 6, I mean, it's interesting. It almost sounds like a proverb.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a good way to frame it or think about it. And if you look at the lives of saints in the Bible, let alone in real life, I mean, not real life, but outside of the Bible, beyond the scope of biblical times, it's not like everyone who sowed bountifully all lived with lots of money, like the apostles were just flying high or something, or like
wealthy Roman lives.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you even go to 2 Timothy, it says that those who are rich in the present world, so there's clearly people that don't have money and do have money.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say, "Oh, you guys are rich because you gave so much." In fact, he warns them not to trust in their riches and become haughty and all of that. So, long story short, I think there's a general principle at play with a lot of things in Scripture, but it doesn't mean God promises all the time, if you do this, you're going to get it back tenfold or whatever.
Yeah.
So
that idea is just dangerous in the human heart, But there is a sort of a proverbial idea that's contained in those things.
Absolutely.
That God's going to give you so that you can then give and supply needs elsewhere.
Right. And that second part is important. It's not like you give and so God's going to give you a Bentley.
Yeah.
Or
really? I mean, I would love a Bentley. No,
not
actually,
yet.
I wouldn't love a Bentley. I'd be scared to death all the time.
Or a bigger.
I couldn't even pay the taxes on a Bentley.
Exactly. Or like a bigger house.
Right.
Or God's going to give you the nicest, all this money to buy stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes against everything else in Scripture. So
the principle is more about God providing for the church through individuals, and that there's giving and there's receiving that's involved in that.
Exactly. And if you look at verses 11 and 12, it says, "You will be enriched," continuing that idea of if you sow generously, God will bless you to sow generously more. Not so much that God will bless you so that you can buy stuff. It says you'll be enriched in everything for all liberality, being liberal with your money towards others. It says, "For the ministry of the service is not only fully supplying the needs of the saints." There you go. Verse 12.
That's awesome. Yeah. You'll be enriched in everything for all liberality. So anything that does come back to you in that proverbial sense is just going back out again. No, that's good.
Right. And I think that's true with anything that God gives us, whether it's spiritual gifts, money, time, certain talents that we have, anything and everything. Our whole lives it's a gift from God, but anything that we give, if we're motivated by the love of Christ, you want to give that back. And you'll expend it all.
Yeah, for the sake of the saints.
For the sake of the saints.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sort of dovetails into another question then.
Yep.
Who do you give to? So I mean, there are just countless ministries. There's clean water ministries, orphan ministries, all sorts of ministries, and then those things there's actually iterations of those beyond that, and then some that are Christian, but maybe Christian in leadership and not Christian in name or not Christian in position. So what does that look? Where does giving happen, and what should it look like?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I think there's a conscience issue where you can't say, well, you can only give to this type of organization, right? I mean, conscience, but bound by Scripture, of course, and principles. But overall, I would say you have to give to the saints. Now, that, of course, then becomes, what does that mean? And I think the priority, saints, but priority within that priority is local church, the saints in a local church. So I would think naturally that priority would be your own local church.
Right, yeah.
Because also, think about what Paul says about paying double honor to elders. Well, which elders? Some elder in Texas? No, your elders. Not, you know what gotta be careful here, but you understand.
It does make sense,
And I think it's the principle of whatever's closer to you. Because they're watching over your souls.
Yeah.
In this case of elders, right?
Yeah.
And so for the needs of the saints, who? Well, those right around you.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
That makes sense. Yeah, so you see needs among the saints, and rather than just walking up to that person and saying, "Hey, here's some money to meet your need," you can give it to the church, and then it's given through the church to that person, so that then the credit ultimately goes to God.
Right.
Yeah, that makes
not
sense.
to you.
Not to you individually. Yeah. So the church sort of becomes a helpful pass through in order to provide the needs of the saints, but then also protect anonymity, not letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same way with even paying elders, like you and I both get paid,
right?
We're both elders,
right?
Paid by the church, but that payment, we don't know who gives to make the payment, right? In fact, have you ever seen the
I've never seen a check.
I've never seen a giving statement from.
Yeah, I mean, there might have been a check in my hand, but I never looked at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know what the payment is, so we just see that as all coming from God.
Right.
Now, so then there's the next layer behind that is, like, for example, let's say you do want to give to a ministry in Africa, for example.
Yeah.
Is there some specific categories that you would say are helpful or principles to guide giving in those areas?
I would say you take these specific principles about local church and elders and all of that, and then just extrapolate that out.
Yeah.
And use the principles, get principles based on that.
Yeah.
And I would say, if it's tied to like a local church with elders. And I would say that you would have to know them.
Yeah.
You know something about them.
Yeah.
I think that's safe.
Yeah.
Then there's an accountability there.
Totally.
Just on a practical level, you know where your money is going in the sense that it's actually going to specific needs of the saints there for the furthering of the gospel. Or saints that are struggling. Like what Paul was collecting, right, for famine needs of saints in Jerusalem. So I would say like the more awareness you have of like spiritually what's going on with that church, the better. And it's not like you're just tossing your money to some charity.
Yeah.
Not that that's, again, not that giving to a Christian charity is wrong. Right. But I think, like, to me, the priority would be to give to local churches that are then using those funds to do ministry.
Yeah. Yeah, that
again,
totally makes
not
sense.
that it's wrong to give to Christian charities.
Of course, yeah. And there are Christian charities that do function through local churches.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Children's Hunger Fund, I know they contact local churches of people that they trust, and then they use the funds that they're given as a charity to take those things to give food, but not necessarily through the church to the needy, as opposed to just like distributing widely without connection to a church.
Right. Like if it's just like a purely parachurch organization, not that that's wrong. I would say, we've seen so many scandals, we've heard of so many financial improprieties. So we just got to be careful because we want the funds, not because of just the monetary issue, but we want it to go to actually serve the saints.
To be used, That makes good sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's super helpful, Jason. Thank you. I hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, you can always email or comment on the video. Thanks.
Thank you.